under one economic and political umbrella one day. Okay, tonight we do have an interesting session for you. In the main part of the program, the Honorable Albert Adongo has given us in this studio a few hours ago an explosive interview. It's an interview that you should see. He initially began by responding to some of the things Gabby Darko said to us in a famous interview last week. Mr. Adongo responded to two aspects: the banking crisis, which seems to be his pet subject, and also the PDS issue, which he weighed into significantly. It's an explosive interview. It lasted 40 minutes long. It's going to be part of tonight's setup. We will start, though, with two opinion editorials. The first one, it is with a sour taste that we will conduct this opinion editorial right now about the Adom-Otchere diamond mine. You know that on this program we have had a pet concern for the support of local Ghanaian companies. We see that the Ghanaian company, the Great Consolidated Diamond Company, Ghana, is being imperiled by activities of agencies of the state. We have looked at the matter, we have found out the letters that have been written and letters that have been exchanged, and we have cast a verdict, which we will share with you, of course, so that you can analyze our verdict, ventilate it, and give us an opinion. So that's our first matter. Our second matter is a small matter. It's a matter that takes us straight to the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. And it takes us to look again critically at the matter and the case of Adom-Otchere, the suspended director of the Public Procurement Authority, the chief executive of the Public Procurement Authority. Mr. Adom-Otchere was found in a documentary that was produced by investigative journalist Banasi Zuriawuni, and the allegation was that there was a sale of contract of sorts. We have looked at this very critically, but now Adom-Otchere is making he's making a request from Shraj. We are fearing that Shraj might overlook his request, and we think that injustice, gross injustice, will be done if Shraj were to overlook the request. We have also found out what Adom-Otchere told the special prosecutor when he met him. What did he write in his caution statement? We have that, and it will fascinate you because he wrote only one sentence. So when we have finished, you should take the decision that you join us to put pressure on Shraj to give Adom-Otchere what he's looking for, so that there will be a transparent hearing of this matter. There will be a transparent and critical analysis of this matter. If that public hearing is allowed, I can commit that Metro TV will show it live. We'll come to the Adom-Otchere matter. It's a big part of our program today. We're going to walk you through the responses he gave to Shraj. Now, if you look at his responses and you look at the allegations in the documentary, you will definitely want a public hearing because you would want to get to the bottom of this matter. One of the two narratives is wrong. One of the two narratives is fake, because what Adom-Otchere is saying is completely opposite what the documentary presented. So one of the two narratives has to give way. Something has to give. We'll lead you into that as part of tonight's edition of Good Evening Ghana. And after that, we'll show you the Honorable Isaac Adongo, who said a lot of serious things. Many times in the interview, I had to issue a disclaimer for Metro TV and Good Evening Ghana that the matters that he had addressed were matters that are of his own conscience, and we do not necessarily support and endorse those. To issue that disclaimer because some of them were quite serious. You have to see that interview. Now, though, it was with a very sour taste that we rendered this opinion editorial. The Adom-Otchere mine had been lying fallow for a very long time. A Ghanaian was given the concession and he paid some of the money for it. Somehow he has not paid he has not paid the rest of the money. There are reasons why he hasn't paid. The DIC knows why he hasn't paid. The government have been told why he hasn't paid. And the government is actually part of the reason why he hasn't paid. And all of these things happened. Let's go right away into our opinion editorial, the first one for tonight. Here it is.
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labors. Toils of the brave which have brought results.
So let's set the ball rolling and let's set the foundation of the Adom-Otchere diamond mine. Where did Adom-Otchere diamond mine come from? Where has it been? And why is it where it is today? Here is the details of an executive summary that has been prepared for your attention, viewers. And so I'd like to read together with you in an executive summary that has been put together for our attention. And it goes as follows. The GCDGL was originally established in 1924. Note, 1924, in the same year in which Adom-Otchere School was established. Adom-Otchere School is what, 90 years old now? This is the year before Gordon Gudgesberg's Constitution of 1925 was established. This is way before Dr. Kwame Nkrumah returned to Ghana. That's when the British established this mine. And it was established when mining commenced in Adom-Otchere by the Consolidated Africa Selection Trust, who owned 100% of the mine. So the British people established a mine in Adom-Otchere and owned 100% of it. Okay, fast forward, and the executive summary continues. In 1972, the government of Ghana acquired 55% of the company and was renamed the Ghana Consolidated Diamond Limited. So kudos to one of my favorite former presidents and former heads of state, Kutu Achampong. He was president in 1972. He decided that the commanding heights of the economy should be in the hands of Ghanaians. He went ahead to acquire a majority stake in the Adom-Otchere Diamond Mine and renamed it the Ghana Consolidated Diamond Mine. It used to be called the Africa Selection Trust. It was now called the Ghana Consolidated Diamond Mine. The remaining 45% interest was held by BP Minerals. So, of course, the British were still in there. They had 45%. Then in 1980, something else happened. Let's hear it. In 1980, BP Minerals relinquished its shares to the government of Ghana, making it 100% owner of GCD Limited. The Ghana Consolidated Diamond Limited was now owned 100% by the Republic of Ghana. Dr. Hilal Iman, another Pan-Africanist president, actually was president at the time. BP Minerals, however, remained as operator of the mine under a management contract until 1997, when the company came under care and maintenance. Let's read this last line, which is very important for the conversation we are having tonight. So the Ghana Consolidated Diamond Limited was put under divestiture in 1989 and was eventually taken over by the Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana Limited. That's the new owners in 2011. So this mine was on divestiture from 1989 until 2011 when the current owners took over. Nobody wanted it. It had been there. No foreign company wanted it. The foreigners had mined it for such a long time, from 1924 up to 1972. And they had probably mined so much of it that the mine needed recuperation. And then in 1980, the government of Dr. Liman decided that, okay, we'll take over 100%. In 1989, the government of the PNDC decided that we will put it under divestiture. And it had been on divestiture from 1989. Check how many years that is. Almost 21 years on divestiture. And in 2011, it was acquired. So the mine was kept on divestiture until 2011. 2011, it was acquired by what is now the Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana Limited. The Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana Limited. So sometime on the 4th of December 2018, Cardinal Law Group, lawyers for the Divestiture Implementation Committee, wrote this letter to the group that had acquired the mine. This is what they wrote. They wrote, and I quote, "We act for the Divestiture Implementation Committee, DIC, and you see this portion shaded in green. Our client's instructions are that on or about 6th May 2011, it offered and you accepted the assets of the Ghana Consolidated Diamond Corporation Limited, located at Adom-Otchere in the Eastern Region, for an amount of 17 million United States dollars, pursuant to the terms of that offer. Subsequently and to date, you have made only paltry payments in the sum of 3.8 million United States dollars, notwithstanding our client having placed you in occupation of the concession. As you reckon, by the application of the exigible payment default interest of 2% plus the prevailing liable to the outstanding debt, the balance due and owing from you as of September 30th, 2018 stands at $18,401,208.05. You have not heeded to persistent demands on you to settle your indebtedness to our client. Undoubtedly, you are aware that your conduct in default of payment aforesaid is in continuous breach of the agreement between you and our client. Our client has instructed us to demand, which we hereby do, that you settle your debts, your just debts, within 90 days upon receipt of this notice. Needless to advise that if you fail to accede to our client's demand as made herein, we hold its firm instructions to take action to enforce the consequences of your default. Hopefully, You will not constrain our client to pursue this latter option. Please be advised, yours sincerely, and it's signed by the lawyer. So this is the letter that first came to the people who had bought the mine after it had been on divestiture for so long. This letter was written on the 4th of December, and it was received, according to the documents that are available to us, on the 20th of December. A good letter. It's a letter that is requesting that people who have signed a contract or who have accepted an offer to buy must pay up. And so the guys respond. So the letter goes to them and they respond as follows. We'll put that up as now so that you can see that. Yes, it's on now. So here we go. It says, now this letter is to Cardinal Law Group. It's written on the 15th of April. Remember, Cardinal Law Group wrote on the 5th of December. It says, divestiture of Ghana Consolidated Diamonds Company Limited, abrogation of agreement. Your letter, in respect of the above, dated 9th April, refers. Please be advised that your purported abrogation of the assets. So what this means is that on the 9th April, a letter was written abrogating the contract. It's a letter that we don't have. The one we have is of 4th December, warning of an intention to abrogate. There should be another letter, and I think there is. This is what this letter is referring to on the 9th of April. This one is actually written on the 15th of April. So on the 9th of April, we suspect that there was a letter that was written by the minister to abrogate. So it says, your letter in respect of the above dated 9th April refers. Please be advised that your purported abrogation of the assets sale and purchase agreement is wrongful and unlawful and cannot be binding on our client. As a result, our client is not in a position to meet you or your team to discuss any post-termination or abrogation matters. Rather, our client is prepared to meet you to discuss further the operations of the mine. Kindly let us know your acceptance or otherwise to this invitation to further advise our clients. And this is also copied to the Honorable Minister of Finance, it's copied to the Divestiture Implementation Committee, it's copied to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, who is the minister responsible, and also the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission. So that's where the fight starts. So they write that we are warning you, we'll abrogate. They write back and actually abrogate, and they are written to and said that we will not accept the abrogation. So at this stage, it is becoming a legal tussle. And the concern that we have tonight is that why don't we settle this matter in court? Why doesn't our government people, the SIGA, the State Interest and Government Authority, they're called SIGA, them, why don't they want to settle the matter in court? Why do they want to take the matter into their own hands? A person has paid money, $3.8 million, acknowledged by you. He has to pay $17 million. He hasn't paid. He has written to you that he has concerns. We'll see as we go on. Why do you want to settle it in, as they say, the forceful way? 25 years of democratic practice. We'll get to Asamoah Boateng and the sentiments and all of that. Let's keep going. We are building it slowly. So let's get to a third document. So they actually now institute legal action. As we go on, watch out for the date of 18 September 2019. It was the most dramatic date in this whole affair. And when I report to you what happened on the 18th of September 2018, you'll be worried about Ghana. You'll be worried about our democracy, and you'll be worried about why we do that to ourselves. I'm going to compare and contrast the relationship and the treatment of this diamond company owned by the Jospon Group to the treatment of the Obuasi mine owned by South Africans and the treatment of the manganese mine owned by Chinese people. Note that I'm going to compare and contrast the relationship between the government and the state authority, between them and the Obuasi and the Akwetia mine, which is owned by Ghanaian, between the government and the Obuasi mine, which is owned by South Africans, and between the government and the manganese mine in Takrady, which is owned by Chinese. And you see how we treat our people. And you understand why the Archbishop made the comment that he made. The comment I'm about to play to you. And as I said, I'm saying it again. The purpose of this is to do a compare and contrast. Government in the middle, its relationship from its left hand to Akwetia mine, owned by Ghanaian. Government in the middle, its relationship to the Obuasi mine, owned by South Africans. Government in the middle, its relationship with the manganese mine, owned by Chinese. You will see how the people are treated differently, completely differently. Listen to the Archbishop.
The level of insecurity, envy, and jealousy in this country is amazing. And if you look at our political systems, the way it's designed, it enhances jealousy and envy. It empowers envy and jealousy. So it has become a vicious cycle where we have become a society of bringing down one another. Yeah, bringing down one another. And I don't want to be political. But if you look at people like Zoom Lion and others, Zoom Lion is a Ghanaian. Yeah. But every government that has come will go after Zoom Lion. Because they don't understand why a Ghanaian should make it that big. So they prefer to cut deals with foreigners and let foreigners come in, take our inheritance, and give us crumbs and peanuts, rather than to make deals with a Ghanaian. So any government that comes, they'll tell them that this man is MPP, or this man is NDC. He's an enemy of our party. He's an enemy of state. He's an enemy of the nation. Pull him down, bring him down, and we'll take away everything he has to give it to foreigners. Sometimes when you are traveling on the Springtex Road, you will see shops, different things. Thank you, Ghana. And another one say, I love Ghana. Ghana is good.
So you heard him. We will show you how these things happen. That 25 years after the Fourth Republic, we are bastardizing the role of the judiciary. We are bastardizing the role of the Constitution. And we have gone to the courts to pick up case law where judges are talking about the importance of the judiciary. We'll get there in a minute. Let's look at the legal action. So this letter is now 24th May. So after they wrote to them and said that you haven't paid, we might prepare legal action. They wrote to them and said that we have abrogated. They wrote back and said you cannot abrogate, so they take a step and move to court. Have a look at paragraph 4 and 5. Now 4 says that the agreed purchase price of the assets was USD 17 million. 5 says plaintiff avers that it made an initial payment of USD 2.7 million, which was acknowledged in the said agreement. Plaintiff subsequently made a further payment of USD 2.1 million, bringing the total payment of USD 4.8 million. That's how much the person has paid, 4.8 million. A Ghanaian pays his own $4.8 million to purchase a national asset, which is 17 million, valued at $17 million, which has been run by British since 1924, which has been on divestiture for 21 years. I say that again, a Ghanaian pays his own 4.8 million United States dollars, his own money, acquired through business in Ghana, and pays that money to a state organization to take over assets of a state mine, valued at 17 million United States dollars. A mine that has been mined by the British since 1924 up to 1972. And the British continued to take over management from 72 until 1997. Now the Ghanaian man comes in and pays his own money, and he has outstanding to pay. And he is being treated brutally, almost like a criminal, because he hasn't paid the outstanding, even though he has sued. And they don't do that to a Chinese company in Takoradi, I'll show you. They don't do that to the South African company in Obuasi, I'll show you what they have done, what the Chinese did in Takoradi, I'll show you all of that. This is what we are talking about. And meanwhile, the British company called Kroll, and I've been saying it on this program, I'll not stop saying it until they collect the money, has taken $1 million of Ghanaian taxpayers' money, and the state is not going after them. The Auditor General has informed us that a British company has taken your $1 million. We are not going after it. A Ghanaian has paid $4.8 million to acquire a state asset, and we brutalize them. We go to their office and seize their laptops, and we treat them as if they are, sorry to say, not human beings. And we are brutal on them. We violate the law, take policemen to their office, seize their car, seize their laptop. But the British man who took your $1 million, which the Auditor General has talked about, up till today, I will say it until I am told that the Ministry of Finance has recouped the money. They should go for that $1 million from the British company that took the money for doing nothing. They should find out who at the Ministry of Finance paid the British man $1 million for doing nothing, and stop harassing Ghanaians who have paid their own $4.8 million to acquire an asset that had been lying fallow for 21 years. That had been mined by the British since 1924 up until 1972. Look at the number of years in that. And a Ghanaian pays $4.8 million, they are harassing him. So he goes to court. In the build-up to the story, this is court. So he's in court now. What do they do? The Asamoah Boatens of this world don't care about the court. They violate the court anyhow. This is Minister Samuel Boatin, whom we know. The same man who said that if people cannot find rice to eat, they should go and eat kokonte in 2008. And it became a big issue for the MPP campaign. That's what he said. He says something worse now. I'll show you. Samuel Boatin has said something worse than the kokonte argument. And I'll show you in this program in a minute. Hold on. So that is the third document. Now comes the fourth document. Now in the fourth document, the company, recognizing the authority of the executive in the Republic, go now to the minister as the executive and make an appeal to the minister. Let's read it. Have a look at it. It's coming up. It says in paragraph 1, it says, we respectfully refer to your letter on the 10th of June terminating the GCDGL's mining lease. Please accept this letter as our formal petition to your good self to reconsider your decision to terminate the lease and reinstate same. Okay. With respect, Honorable Minister, since the receipt of your letter of 12 December, we have been taking steps to remedy our breach. Indeed, subsequent to our initial reply dated 4th April 2019, we have requested to meet with you to discuss our situation. Honorable Minister, we have at all material times been expecting an invitation to meet with you to discuss our situation and explain what we are doing to remedy our default. Unfortunately, this opportunity never availed itself, and you have sought to apply the sanctions accordingly. Now, this is very serious. This is a very serious matter. You see, when people take up political authority, they have to understand that they are operating something called a social contract. This Minister of Lands and Mr. Samuel Boatin, they must read this book, The Social Contract. They must read it. You see, when you are a minister, you're not a minister by yourself. You're a minister appointed under Article 78 of the Constitution to assist the president achieve his mandate. How is it possible? This will never happen in Britain. A Ghanaian company owns a mine that is problematic. They write to you, they want to see you, and they can't see you. You can't give them an appointment. Every day you are meeting Chinese people. Every day you are meeting Indian people. Every day you are meeting South African people. Every day you are meeting British people. Every day you are meeting American people. A Ghanaian business wants to see you. A Ghanaian business that has put 4.8 million down to buy a mine wants to see you, and you're a minister and they cannot see you. What do you think you're a minister for? You see, this is the problem we are having in Ghana. That is why the youth are concerned about how we are managing this 25 years of democracy. A minister, a whole minister, this will never even happen in South Africa. Even in Nigeria, this will not happen. In Nigeria, this will never happen. In Britain, this will never ever happen. That a British man who has put money to buy a British asset wants to see a minister, and for months they can't see him. Go to their office. Every day they are meeting Chinese people. Every day they are meeting Indians. If you're a Ghanaian and you want to see a minister, you can't see him. Why? Why do we queue hours to go and vote? Why do we do that? What do they think? Why do they think we do that? They think we do that so that they'll be serving foreigners? Nobody, no foreigner can develop this country. Not one, no single foreigner. Foreigners are welcome. You heard President Akufo-Addo in his famous speech, the Macron speech. That's what he said. That France will do what they can for Ghana, but Ghana must do it for itself. Nigeria must do it for itself. Kenya must do it for itself. Rwanda is showing the example. They are doing it for themselves. Ministers, listen and listen clearly. Meet Ghanaians. Endeavor to meet Ghanaians. Have a timetable and ask your secretary, how many Ghanaians have I met today who want to do something with this government? Meet Ghanaians. Meet them all the time. Help them. Think about them. Help them. Clap for them. Encourage them. Meet Ghanaians. Why? Look at this letter. Look at how painful it sounds. The guy writes a letter, says, Minister, you wrote to me. You said you want to terminate. Please, I have been trying to meet you. I have not been able to meet you. He writes, this is about the third letter they wrote to the minister. Minister will not meet them. Ghanaian, who has paid $4.8 million. Is $4.8 million small money? You have dashed $1 million to a British company. You dashed it to them that they should go and spend it. Auditor General is flagging it. He's still looking for the money. You've given it to the Ministry of Finance. Somebody has actually signed our taxpayers' money. In Britain, the person will be in jail. You go and sign British people's £1 million to somebody for doing nothing, and the British Auditor General says that you have signed, and it will be there, and nobody. The other day, Corruption Watch Multimedia, they called me that they want to follow up. I've given them the number of the Crow people. I've given them their email address. I am waiting. The other day, I talked about investigative journalists. So they called me. I've given them the email address. I've given them the number. Corruption Watch, I'm waiting, and everybody who's listening to me is waiting for you. Come and tell us where the $1 million is. That $1 million can solve some of the problems you saw at the Independence Square the other day. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why do we always do that to ourselves? The letter goes on. In the shaded portion, the man is now saying something. He says, yes, I have paid some of the 70 million. I owe you some more. But listen to this. Listen to what the man is writing. Listen to his proposal for the solution to pay the money. Listen, it's on the screen now. Listen to it. He says, currently, the government owes some of the companies in the group huge sums of monies, and the shareholder is prepared to assign a portion of these monies belonging to affiliates to the ministry to extinguish these outstanding debts, should you deem it appropriate and worth considering. That's the letter they wrote to the minister who has terminated, they abrogated the appointment. That's the minister. So now let's come back to the matter. You see, there are three arms of government. There's the judiciary, there's the executive, and there's the legislature. For democracy to proceed, one of them is more important than the others, and I'll explain to you. So the presidential authority, the executive power, is partisan. It's partisan because we vote on political party lines. Until you have an independent candidate winning an election, the presidency will always be partisan. So you have a president who is either a member of a political party, his CPP, his MPP, or his NDC. That's how president is. So the presidency is political. It's good for good reason, so that they can drive the political agenda. And we vote for them based on a political agenda. So MPP has its policy, free SHS, NDC has its policy, e-block classroom, whatever. You choose one and you vote. So you are voting on the political lines. That's fair. So the executive is political. The legislature is also political because you always have a majority side. And as they say in parliament, minority will have their say, but the majority will have their way. So the majority in parliament will always have their way. So that's political. It is only the judiciary that is not political. It is the judiciary that is not political. And I'll show you that Akufo-Addo I, in 1969, he knew in 1969, Akufo-Addo I was aware in 1969 that in 2019, an Asamoah Boateng will rise up and behave in a certain way. Akufo-Addo described what Asamoah Boateng has done and said we should never allow it to happen. I'll show you the document. He described a politician who will behave in a certain way. In 1969, in the Akufo-Addo report, I'll show it to you, we found it. In the Akufo-Addo report, Edward Akufo-Addo, the former Chief Justice, describes politicians. He positions the judiciary and says that we should allow the judiciary to work because there are politicians who behave in a certain way, the same way as Asamoah Boateng has behaved. How can a politician behave like that when there's a legal suit hanging? The matter is in court. Then you take policemen and soldiers to the office at Roman Ridge and go and ransack the place, seize their laptop, seize everything, and then send them away. And then you write a letter that they should submit to national security. Have you heard some before? Asamoah Boateng and his people wrote a letter that the Ghana Consolidated Diamond should submit everything to national security. What is the meaning of that? You don't understand democracy. You see, this is the same guy who said that if we don't have rice, we should go and eat kokonte. And he also said something. I said, it's worse. I'll show it to you. He said something totally worse because he was interviewed on Adom-FM about this matter. And he was asked that the money the company paid, the 4.8 million, what is he going to do with it? You know what he said? He said the money is missing. Asamoah Boateng told the people of Ghana that the money that the private company paid to government is missing. He doesn't even understand the social contract. You are the government. We are the people. You are supposed to be the custodian of our money. And you come and tell us that the money is missing. It's like you go to a bank and they tell you your money is missing. That is how crass it is. It's like you go to a bank and they tell you your money is missing. The state organization, former minister, is telling a radio station that the money that was paid by the private company is missing. Who has been arrested? If it's missing, arrest somebody. Tell us how it got missing and take responsibility for holding the authority of state. You see, in a democracy, people must take responsibility for holding the authority of state. The authority of state is not like a pre-sec school prefect. The authority of state is more sacrosanct than that. And I repeat the word, the authority of state is sacrosanct. That is why the president carries the oath and they tell him at the Independence Square, would you swear by the Bible or would you swear by the Quran? Because it is solemn and it is sacrosanct. The president doesn't take that oath and shares his power with some people. You come and sit on radio and tell us that the money that was paid was missing. How irresponsible can you be? to tell us that the money is missing. Do you understand the oath of the president? Have you read the solemn oath of the president in the Constitution? Because the power that Samuel Barton carries, it is a chip away from the president's authority. Because the president cannot carry his entire authority, Article 57 says that the executive authority of state vests in the president, and he may share with other people in 58. In Article 58, it talks about the president can share that authority. So if you're a state official and you pick up some of that authority, which is grounded on a solemn and sacrosanct oath that the president swore on the Bible according to his faith to the people of Ghana at Independence Square, you don't come and sit on radio 3 years after the oath and make an irresponsible statement like the money is missing. You should bow down your head in shame. To tell the people of Ghana that money that has been paid to the taxpayer is missing. You use the word missing. Can you imagine? And such wanton abuse of authority. You want to take a company. Yes, they've gone to court. Go to the court with them. Governments have been winning cases in court. Godfrey Dami, the Deputy Attorney General, has been winning cases in court. If you're a government and you have a case, you can win. If I'm a private sector and I have a case, I can win. The only hope of sustaining the judiciary, the only hope of sustaining democracy is the judiciary. Listen to what Justice Edward Akufo-Addo said. Have a listen. And it's on your screen, you can see it. And I read. It says, that is the supreme law from which all persons and authority derive their constitutional existence, duties, rights, and powers. He's talking about the Constitution being the supreme law from which all of us derive our existence, our duty, those of us who have a duty, rights when all of us have rights, and powers, those who have been given powers, like Minister Samuel Boateng, they derive it from there. And Edward Akufo-Addo is continuing. He says that we conceive it to be indispensable for the effective operation of the Constitution to have a strong, courageous, and independent judiciary, capable in all circumstances of holding the balance evenly between the overreaching zeal. Now, overreaching zeal is a very beautiful word. He's talking about the wanton acts of indiscipline, such as has been purported by the state's interest and assets authority against the Ghana Consolidated Diamond. That's what Edward Akufo-Addo is talking about. He's talking about the overreaching zeal of bureaucrats and politicians on the one hand, and the God-given rights of the individual on the other. The God-given rights of the individual on the other. That's what he's saying, the God-given rights of the individual on the other. Rights of people when they have purchased something. Rights of people when they have interest in a company. Those rights that the overreaching zeal of politicians like Samuel Boateng in 2019 should not be tolerated by the judiciary. And that's why I suspect that on the first day of appearance in court, the judiciary will say something. Let's go now to the famous date, 18th of September 2019. This is what happened. On the 18th of September 2019, two things happened. Well, you will see it here. So two letters were written, all dated 18th. One of them is from the Consolidated Diamond Ghana. One of them is from them. And that's on your screen now. Let's have a look at it. So that's written from the same chambers, and it's written to the Honorable Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Accra. And it says, Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana Limited versus the Attorney General, suit number, and it says the above refers. We are instructed by our client, Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana Limited, to apprise you as follows. A, it has come to the attention of our client that the government of Ghana is intending to form an interim management committee to take over and administer the affairs and/or the operations of the assets, including the mining concession at Adom-Otchere and its catchment area, plant, machinery, equipment, among others, which are subject to the asset sale and purchase agreement executed between the government of Ghana, acting through the Divestiture Implementation Committee, and our client in December 2011. Please be apprised that our client on the 24th of May 2019 instituted an action in the High Court, Commercial Division, Accra, challenging the purported unilateral termination of the asset sale and purchase agreement by the government of Ghana through the Divestiture Implementation Committee dated 9th April 2019. In addition, the letter says, our client is seeking the consequential relief of perpetual injunction, restraining the government of Ghana, represented by yourself, its assigns and agents from interfering with the lawful and peaceful enjoyment of the assets described supra. A copy of the writ of summons and statement of duly filed by our client invoking the jurisdiction of the court is attached for your reference and attention. we hope you would ensure that the authority of the court is not undermined in any way. And I like the last sentence. It says that we hope that you would ensure that the authority of the court is not undermined in any way, anticipating your benign cooperation, and is sent to the office of the learned Attorney General and Minister of Justice appointed under Article 88 of the 1992 Constitution. That is a very sublime letter. Now, the same date, 18 September 2019, see this letter. It will shock you to the bone and marrow. It's on the screen now. It's written on the letterhead of the State Interest and Governance Authority. I'm sure they are wondering how we got this letter, but we got it anyway. Okay, 18 September 2019. It's written to the Chief Executive Officer, Great Consolidated Diamonds Limited. It says, Dear Sir, handing over of assets of Ghana Consolidated Diamonds Limited. The State Interest and Governance Authority is the agency of government established by Act 990 to oversee and administer the state interest in state-owned enterprises, joint venture companies, and other state entities, and to provide for related matters. SIGA is also the agency of government responsible for the implementation of government's policies on divestiture, a function previously undertaken by the Divestiture Implementation Committee. So SIGA is introducing itself as a company that has now replaced the DIC. We are by this letter informing you of the repossession. Now this is the part that shocks. He says, we are by this letter informing you of the repossession of all assets of the Ghana Consolidated Company Limited with immediate effect. In view of this, we instruct you to hand over all assets of the Ghana Consolidated Diamonds Company Limited to representatives of the National Security for onward delivery to the Interim Management Committee, duly constituted by the State Interest and Governance Authority, SIGA. The handing over should consist of the following. 1. Indentures, title documents, and all relevant documents covering the mining concession. Can you imagine that a state authority writes a letter like this? In a transaction that you yourself, the lawyers of DIC had written that it was 70 million and he has paid 4 million, and then you come and say that we are by this letter informing you of the repossession of all assets. It says that in view of this, we instruct you to hand over all the assets of the Consolidated Diamonds Company to representatives of the National Security for onward delivery. Why national security? What kind of blatant abuse of the coercive authority of state is this? This is a blatant abuse of the coercive authority of state. What power do they have to instruct national security? Is that how our national security can be instructed by every Tom, Dick, and Harry? Does every Tom, Dick, and Harry instruct our national security? Is the national security not an authority of state to be instructed by His Excellency the President, His Excellency the Vice President, ministers of state appointed by Article 78? Do such people as State Interest and Governance Authority also have the right to instruct our national security? Is that what has become here in Ghana, that our national security is instructed by every Tom, Dick, and Harry? National security is an apparatus of the presidency. They should not be instructed by State Interest and Governance Authority. Any movement of national security must come from the National Security Minister, the President of Ghana, the Vice President of Ghana, and Minister of State of Ghana appointed under Article 78, the Office of the President led by the Chief of Staff. These are people who can instruct national security. That is what it should be, not State Interest and Governance Authority instructing the national security and having the effrontery to send a letter to that effect, that they have asked national security to come and collect something. Send this letter written on the 18th of September, the same day that the Ghanaian was complaining to the Attorney General that the writ has been issued and that there's a court matter, and urging the Attorney General to ask the government to respect the court. On the same day, State Interest and Governance Authority are writing to show us that they have a lot of power, that they can also instruct national security. Honorable Albert Kandapar, this is not on. This is not the national security that we stood in the line to vote for. This is not the national security that we went around the country doing interviews for 18 years so that we'll have a democracy. We didn't imagine that a national security will be instructed by every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And national security is an important state institution under the office of His Excellency the President. What can I say? Just one more thing to say about how they treat the Obuasi mine and how they treat the manganese mine. But why do we do this to ourselves? I mean, why do we do that? Why do we do this? Why do we do this to ourselves? We don't encourage ourselves. We just. I'm not saying that consolidated is right or that they are wrong. I am saying that the State Interest Authority and governors have violated proper procedure, and that the minister has also closed his doors to a Ghanaian company, which is evil. A minister of state should not close his doors to a Ghanaian company. The State Interest and Governance Authority should not violate the law. They should go to court and find wrong with the consolidated people, whether they haven't paid, whether they have paid. They should go to a court of competent jurisdiction established under the 1992 Constitution. That's what they should do. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying put the diamond mine to the left or put the diamond mine to the right. Obey the rule of law. That is what President Akufo-Addo has stood for 45 years. Obey the rule of law. That's what we have said forever. That's what we were trained in. When we went to university, that's what we were told, that democracy is about obeying the rule of law. Not that an Asamoah Gyan will pop up one day and disobey the rule of law and disregard the institution of the court and do anything he likes, and also instruct national security when he's not a minister, he's not a deputy minister, he's the acting chief executive of State Interest and Governance Authority. Acting. And he's instructing national security. Really? Instructing national security of Ghana. A man who is not a minister under Article 78. He's not a deputy minister under Article 79. He's not the president under Article 57. He's not the vice president. He's instructing national security, and he has the effrontery to write a letter. Asamoah Gyan, he should probably leave the office. This is not the democracy we want to build. When the Attorney General, who wants to collect Alfred Woyome's property, the learned Attorney General, appointed under Article 88 with firm authority, decides to take her papers and go to courts to tell the courts that, my lords, I need you to help me to collect the money for the people of Ghana. I need you to seize Alfred Woyome's property. The matter travels from the High Court to the Supreme Court from 2017 up until now, started by Martin Amidu. The learned Attorney General goes to court, eventually secures a court order in 2019. When the Attorney General is doing that, Asamoah Gyan decides that he can ignore court order and call national security. Who is he?
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labor.
Can you see it, viewers? How Democracies Die. It's a book I bought recently, and it's a fascinating book, and it talks about these things. Democracies die when the rule of law is not equally applied. How Democracies Die. You should get a copy and look at it. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's a small book. It's written by a political scientist from Harvard. How Democracies Die. If the Asamoah Gyans of this world continue to do this, 25 years of democracy might go to waste. The rule of law must be established. Whilst we were doing this, I guess they heard that we're doing something. So they brought me a document. It is a statement of defense. It's a document of a statement of defense. And they just brought it to me that the Office of the Attorney General has entered appearance in the matter that is in court. And I'll look at the date on which he entered appearance, and you'll see that the court process started in May. And he is now entering appearance on the 26th day of August, 2019. That is when the Attorney General has entered appearance for the Asamoah Gyan people. And it's signed by Sylvester Williams. He's a chief state attorney. And they are saying things that are quite shocking. They are saying, for instance, that they are not aware of any contract between Consolidated. They are only aware of an offer letter, and all of these things they are saying in this document. We just received it. I'm guessing that somebody told them that we are talking about them. So they came through with a document. They say that they have entered appearance. They say that, what should I find it? The total amount so far paid by the plaintiff is $3.8 million. And they say that there's no contract except that there is an offer letter. That's what the state is saying. So if the Great Consolidated Diamond Ghana is able to produce a contract, then it will mean that there's been dereliction of the duty on the part of the state. If in the trial, which we are eager to cover, if the trial starts in this civil matter and the Great Consolidated Diamond are able to show a contract. The state says there's no contract. That's the letter that we've just gotten. It's a copy of the statement of defense that's been filed by a chief state attorney for Asamabwas. It just came in, just coming in. Maybe they heard that something was happening, so they just brought this to us. So we just have that. And they are saying that there's no contract, the people didn't have a contract. I don't know how they paid the money without a contract, and they paid so much money on an offer letter. I'm not so sure, but that's what the state is saying. The matter is still in court, sub judice. We will not comment on the verdict. And Adongo is here in the studio. He's going to talk to us. Before then, we'll talk about ABAJ and the Public Procurement Authority, and also SHRAJ, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. We suspect that they are preparing to purport an injustice against ABAJ, the suspended Procurement Authority boss. We suspect that SHRAJ is about to perform an injustice, and we are throwing the caution to them and to you, our viewers, so that you will be aware of what is happening. After the break, we'll be right back.
In this part of the world, we are up long before the sun. Playing our part to make our world, our connections, and relationships a lot more brighter. They say agrobeswa, ne frianopa. Start your day bright with MTN Kokroko. For only 1 Ghana cedi, you can enjoy 400 megabytes of data and 30 minutes of free MTN to MTN calls every day from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. everywhere you go. Dial *138# to buy the MTN Kokroko bundle now. We day for you everywhere you go.
Good morning, Mr. Ding.
Good morning, Ejako. And why do you keep staring at my rubbish container?
I'm surprised you're still using a bin without a cover. You know it can cause a mess.
My bin is just fine. Look, there is no leakage, still solid and robust. If you will excuse me, I have work to do.
Yo.
Dustbins are a great way of keeping trash off the streets and homes. However, the use of bins without fitting covers pose a challenge with stench from rotten items, flies, and scavengers. Keep the environment clean and healthy. Get dustbins with fitting covers.
Okay, so you are eager for Adongo's interview. It's coming up shortly. Before then, though, let's talk about this man, Mr. ABAJ. So there was a documentary that was produced by our friend Manasseh Adom-Otchere that upon the documentary which alleged that ABAJ had been involved in a sale of contracts, or that his company TDL had been involved in a sale of contracts, and that he was conflicted as a PPA boss at the Public Procurement Authority, where he had been chief executive for the second time in the history of the PPA. He was the founding chief executive, and he became chief executive again. That story was published, and a lot of people jumped onto it on social media and talked about ABAJ in very derogatory ways. I've looked at that. We have taken time to look at the documentary. We have not made any statements on it because we're waiting for ABAJ's response. After the president rightly committed the matter to SHRAJ on one hand, which is the civil side administrative justice, and therefore SHRAJ is investigating the conflict of interest allegations, and also committed to the special prosecutor Martin Amidu, the criminal aspects investigations in terms of contract for sale. We have taken hold of Mr. ABAJ's document to SHRAJ. we have also taken hold of a letter that he has actually written to Shraj, demanding for a public hearing of the matter because he is becoming suspicious. He and his lawyers are becoming worried about the processes that are obtaining at the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice in this matter. You see, there's a cabal in this country. I'm not going to mention their names, but they know themselves. There's a cabal in this country that champion corruption stuff. Even when it's a hoax, they champion it. They're a cabal. We know them. We'll pick them one after the other. The suspicion is that this cabal put themselves together to trump up these charges, and Shraj will probably act as one of their agents. And we hope that is not true. We do not believe it, and I have to state that we do not believe that on this program. We do not believe that Shraj will do anything untoward, but we are worried because of the lack of responses that are not coming from Shraj responding to ABAJ's letter. Let's start the process again. I'm going to walk you through what ABAJ has said. If you listen to what ABAJ has said, and you listen to the documentary narrative, they are so far apart that one of them must be a concoction. It's either the narrative of the documentary is a total concoction, or what ABAJ is saying is a total fabrication. One of them must fall. Something must give in this charge, in this documentary versus ABAJ matter. And that is why we support ABAJ's demand for a public hearing of this matter. Have a look at what ABAJ appeared before the special prosecutor. He did. And he had only one thing to say, just one sentence. We'll show it to you now. This is what he said. It will come up on the television now. So that's ABAJ on the right. When he appeared before the public prosecutor, who is investigating sale of contracts, this is all what ABAJ had to say to him. He said, I have not sold any contract. Full stop. The public prosecutor is now expected to make a determination whether the person sitting in front of him as accused has actually sold a contract. And if the public prosecutor comes out with the verdict that ABAJ has not sold any contract, then the narrative between the documentary and the accusations, the allegations that was made will fall flat. This is the only thing Mr. ABAJ and his lawyers wrote to Martin Amidu. They said to him, sir, we have nothing to say, nothing at all to say. The only thing we have to say, based on the mandate that you have and based on the report that has been given to you to investigate us, is this, that, quote and unquote, I have not sold any contract. Wow. So we are looking at that with one eye as well. Let's come to the documents that ABAJ sent to Shraj. And it's very, very important that you look at it. You see, we don't have to destroy people. And I always say that, let's not destroy people. And if you look at the sums of monies that were talked about in the whole documentary, the contracts that were said to have been sold, I have seen photographs of a contract in Agogo that is being executed by TDL. Now, ABAJ says that TDL has won 6 contracts. Before then, we need to understand that the Public Procurement Authority does not award contracts. That has been said so many times. So if TDL, which is ABAJ's company, a company in which he has majority shareholding, wins a contract, and it happens all the time. People have companies that win contracts. They would have won it from Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Trade, blah, blah, blah. What a PPA does is to approve a process by which these contracts are won. And when ABAJ went to the PPA, he introduced a new unit that was going to make it stringent, more stringent, for contracts to be awarded anyhow. You see, Kenneth Oyata had gone to Parliament and had extolled the virtues of ABAJ and the PPA and said that they had saved the country significant amounts of money. That statement has been repeated by the president at the bar conference. By the time the president spoke at the bar conference, ABAJ had already been suspended on this matter. But the president's speechwriters found it necessary to put the work of ABAJ in the president's speech. And at the bar conference, in speaking about corruption, the president reiterated the position of the finance minister, which had been told to Parliament, and said that because of PPA's new procedures, and some of these new procedures, one of them, the unit is here, I'll show you. One of the units in the PPA was designed by ABAJ, and it was put there so that they will be able to checkmate many contracts. You see, we have to be careful because, ABAJ's work maybe is stepping on some important toes around who are bringing contracts in, and he cuts contracts here and cuts contracts there. That's why I asked the question in the promotional message. Is he a victim or is he being victimized? Let's look at what he's telling Shraj. We'll look at paragraph 2 of the document that he sent to Shraj. It will appear on your screen soon, and you can read it with me. We'll finish soon. So paragraph 2 is on your screen now. You can see it. He says that, be that as it may, our client, this is the lawyer's writing, so their client is ABAJ, in any case, is unaware of such corporate practices by TDL. Our client is neither part of the management of TDL nor one of those alleged in the documentary to have engaged in the sale of government contracts on behalf of TDL. We observe that the documentary identifies a particular officer of TDL, Mr. Thomas Amoa, who is alleged to have engaged in the sale of contracts. Our client is not that officer. That's important. Let's come to 5. And the 5 is a very, very important one. They'll show us paragraph 5 of this document in a minute. Okay. So, yes, it's come up now. Paragraph 5, you can see it. It says, since the airing of the documentary in which the spurious allegations against ABAJ were made, our client has discovered that TDL has actually fully executed by itself 4 of the 6 contracts that it won through restricted tendering, and has accordingly been issued with certificates of completion in its favor. The other 2 are currently being executed by TDL. Please find attached and marked AB2 and AB3 and AB4 copies of 3 certificates of completion issued in favor of TDL. My inquiries show that a copy of the 4 certificates is yet to be obtained from the Ministry of Education. It says, we hereby point out, quite shockingly, that contract displayed in the documentary by Manasseh Azuri-Awuni was won by a different company, B. Molly Enterprise. Our client has no affiliation or relationship whatsoever with the said B. Molly Enterprise, and therefore any allegations of conflict of interest arising therefrom is utterly baseless. So this is why I'm making the point that one of them is fabricating and one of them is telling some scurrilous stories. Contracts for sale by TDL. TDL have isolated 6 contracts that they have won from MMDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. They've won 6 contracts out of there. TDL says that of the 6 contracts that I've won, I have completed the execution of 4, executed by TDL. There are other 2 that I have not completed, but it is being done by TDL. One of them is in Agogo that they've showed me the photographs. Apparently, there's a story that the investigators have actually been to Agogo to have a look at it. So did somebody mislead somebody in all of this hula baloo about ABAJ is corrupt? And that's why I like the president's decision to ask him to step aside and let the investigations continue. And I'm getting interested and quite worried about this phenomenon. That did people look at this well? So if it turns out that, in fact, ABAJ has 4 companies, 4 contracts, he's executed all the 4. There are 2 that he's executing, and altogether he has 6. And then you come and tell us that he was selling contracts for sale, when we can't show that any contract has been sold. If it's true that the documentary actually showed a contract being sold, one of the contracts being sold as being by a company called B. Molly, a contract that was won by a company called B. Molly, who have recently issued a public statement that they have nothing to do, they are not a subsidiary of TDL, they have nothing to do with TDL, absolutely nothing to do with TDL, they are not a subsidiary of TDL, and they are called B. Molly, and you were doing a documentary about TDL, and you showed a contract that was won by B. Molly and is being sold by a staff at TDL, and all that is heaped on ABAJ's head as a majority shareholder of the company because you have to do a documentary. Really? Serious. But we are not getting to the conclusion yet because we want to see. So I am making the case why Shraj must give ABAJ a public hearing. Because we have to see the cross-examination. I'm committing to it that Metro TV will show it live. Shraj should give a public hearing. They have to feel obliged to do so. A letter has gone to Shraj every day from tomorrow, follow up. A letter has gone to Shraj. ABAJ is requesting a public hearing. We don't want that thing they do and then they'll sit in the room and write letters and put it together and then they'll publish. As they did in the case of Ken Oforiatta and the Eurobond. So that's what Shraj did. They put it together quickly and published. They went to court and the court quashed it. That's what Shraj did. They did something, went to court, and the court threw it away. They did that before in the case of Richard Adani. They found it and they went to court and the court quashed it because they don't give us a public hearing. So the general public are not even able to follow what they are doing. ABAJ is demanding a public hearing. Shraj shouldn't go and sit in some room and write some paragraphs and come and say, give us some ruling like that. We will not accept this. This is a digital age. We will not accept that. Let us see a public hearing. Let us see the cross-examination of the documentary maker. Let us hear him answering the questions that will be asked of him about contract for sale. Who sold it? Which contract was it? Was it won by TDL? If it was not won by TDL, then as the lawyer says here, it is baseless. If it was won by TDL, who did they sell it to? If TDL were selling contracts that they won from government, then they are guilty. If ABAJ is not part of this, then he's being victimized. By whom? These are the things we have to stop doing in this country. And I'm looking at this in some great detail. You will see another paragraph. If we roll it up, you'll see in ABAJ's letter, it goes on and says that prior to the appointment, this is in 10 or so, it's going to come up on your screen in a minute, and then we'll be wrapping up and going straight to Adongo. It says, prior to the appointment of our clients as CEO of the PPA in March 2017, there was no due diligence unit in the PPA. Applications for single sourcing and restricted tendering were merely considered in the compass of the provisions in Section 38, 39, 40, and 41 of Act 663. Same were granted, especially in the case of restricted tendering without the conduct of value for money analysis. ABAJ is the one who has come to put into place the due diligence unit of the PPA. It's Mr. ABAJ who has put the due diligence. A man who is corrupt, a man who wants to sell contracts, a man who wants to steal, would he put together the due diligence unit of the PPA so that the finance minister can now report that the PPA has made such significant savings to the taxpayer? And the president can also report that the PPA under him has made such significant savings to the taxpayer. A man who should be rewarded is being victimized because they say he sold contracts. Now, Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, please give ABAJ a public hearing. He has written a letter to you. Shraj Boss, ABAJ has written a letter to you. Give him a public hearing. We are all waiting for that. Let us see in toto what happened. Cross-examination, bullet by bullet, question by question, answer by answer. Let us see what exactly happened. Let us see the production that the documentary went through, the processes they went through to come to their conclusions, because those conclusions are capable of tearing away somebody's hard-won image. Those conclusions are capable of defamation. If they are not defamatory, fair enough. But let us see the process by which they come to the conclusion. Georgina Wood, the learned Chief Justice of the Republic, has done something for Ghana that we shall forever be grateful. In the annals of the judicial and political history, the judico-political history of Ghana cannot be written since the end of the Second World War or since the end of the last rolling school without the mention of Her Ladyship Georgina Wood, because of a single act that she did. You know what she did? She decided by administrative fiat that the election petition before the Supreme Court should be conducted as a public hearing. That has changed everything in Ghana. That has sent more people to law school. That has made children want to become lawyers. That has made people enjoy the democracy in Ghana. That has shot Ghana up to the highest heaven. Transparency in the judicial process is always important. Shraj should not let us down on this one. This matter has been widely publicized. ABAJ's name has been denigrated enough. And the man comes to Shraj and says, I want a public hearing. Shraj has not answered the letter. The letter has gone for a long time. Shraj has not answered it. Please, give that public hearing. Let us all see what happened. Whether the journalist was wrong, whether ABAJ was wrong, we will see it. As for the special prosecutor, he has been given one sentence. I do not sell contracts. So we are following that ABAJ story quite closely. Good people must be extolled and exalted in Ghana. It shouldn't be that sometimes we don't extol good people and we find ways of denigrating their name because they are doing the right thing. People are doing the right thing and then we denigrate their name. In Ghana, we do that. Is it not incongruous that the suspended PPA boss, his work is being commended by the finance minister? Whilst he's on suspension, his work is being commended by the president. What kind of society are we? I mean, the Nigerians will laugh at us. The guy, you suspended him, Joe. That's what the Nigerians will say. So why are you commending? Why is his work commended? If it's commendable, then what's going on? Okay, Shraj can resolve it. Give us a public hearing about this ABAJ and the contract for sale matter. Give us a public hearing. Let us see the cross-examination of the producers. Okay, I'm getting a signal that Adongo is ready. Okay, so we are going straight to Adongo, and when he came in, I first asked him about the banking crisis. This is how he answered it.
Why will any reasonable government go about collapsing banks of Ghanaians and spending so huge amount of money and feels proud to talk about it?
Gabby says the banks collapsed themselves because they couldn't guarantee depositors' funds.
It cannot be true. It simply cannot be true. Heritage Bank, your reasons was not insolvency. Construction Bank, your reasons were not insolvency. They were reasons related to how the bank themselves were set up. In the case of Sovereign Bank, your issues were not insolvency. They were about the fact that you said some liquidity support ended up setting up a bank. And so these banks, were they closed down because of some other motive?
Well,
or that they
liquidity
were not?
support has to be used in a certain way, shouldn't it?
I will come to that.
Yeah.
I'll come to that. But the point I'm making is, you are a lawyer, and I stand to be educated. If directors and shareholders misconduct themselves in their fiduciary relationship to the entity, the company, who do you punish? The entity?
You punish the directors and shareholders.
Exactly. So it's like your son. You have a son. You go stealing your son's money. And when you are caught, we kill the son. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, what they said is that they have not actually killed the company. They've reorganized it
Where is it?
into a consolidated bank Ghana.
Chief, they don't exist. You revoke a license, you appoint a liquidator, a receiver. Who is a receiver? A receiver is an undertaker to supervise the death and burial of a company. So you don't appoint receivers when you are doing acquisitions and mergers. You appoint receivers only when you are killing a company. And I heard before Gabby say they have not collapsed any company. Where in corporate law do you find a receiver being appointed for an acquisition and a merger? You appoint a receiver essentially to supervise the death and burial of a company. And so there's no two ways about the fact that they were collapsed. But what is even strange is the fact that, you see, in taking some of these decisions, your immediate priority is about jobs of Ghanaians, particularly in an economy that is struggling to create jobs. And banking sector jobs have traditionally been one of the best paid jobs, and you need to be protecting those jobs. We have several years ago taken a decision to ensure that we have a dominant Ghanaian player within the financial sector. And that is why all these people were being encouraged. It is not because Zenith Bank never had problems in Nigeria, or Access Bank never had problems in Nigeria, or GT Bank never had, but they were handheld because Nigeria wanted to become a dominant player in the Africa and global financial space. And that is what we did. Let me give you an example. In Canada, a major savings and loans company called Pace Savings and Credit Union, worth $3 billion, had challenges with shareholders and directors who were misconducting themselves. The Bank of Canada took over the bank without even the people of Canada knowing it had been taken over. They appointed new directors, new CEO, and appointed consultants to look into the bank and to turn it around. Not a single job was lost.
What happened to the culprits?
So they were now made to face the rigors of the law. You see, the child, that is why when a parent does not supervise a child well, we take the child to social welfare to give him better protection. We don't kill the child. So the company itself is a victim of its shareholders and directors, if so proven. And you will now go and give double jeopardy to the one who has been wronged. It is never done. You are a lawyer. Read the Banks and Special Deposits Taking Institutions Act of 2016 at 930. And look at from section 110 to section 130. It will give you all the steps you have to take in order to take a bank under administration. It will tell you that when you announce an administration and appoint an administrator, the administrator has 3 months to produce an interim report, which is basically a status report of what you came to see.
Yeah.
By the time you end the duration of the administration, you are supposed to produce a special report together with what we call inventory of assets. What does that do? In that report, you recommend what you think has to be done with the bank. Should the bank be resolved? Should the bank be recapitalized? Should the bank be restructured? Should the bank be taken through other processes? Or the bank should be collapsed? It is on the strength of a special report and the inventory of assets that you take a decision to revoke the license and to take it down. It is clearly stated in the Banks and Special Deposit Act. KPMG produces what is an interim report mandated by the law in 3 months. And you take that in decent haste to take down the bank. And you are saying what?
Are you referring to Unibank?
Of course.
Because it was Unibank that,
Exactly.
in the case of Unibank, that an official administrator.
Exactly. And read the law. Read the law. These are the steps. So what was the indecent haste about? That you couldn't even wait for the 4 months. You never had a special report.
Is it not true that, as Gabby told us, some of his clients could not find their money in some of these banks?
You see, that is not the point. The point is that there are processes for dealing with this. The processes are that let the administrator come to tell us what he has seen after the end of the process. Let the administrator, through his special report, make the appropriate recommendations. Let the governor be empowered by the special report to take that decision. And at that point, when you are taking that decision, there is an inventory of assets for us to know what we have in our hands. You take a bank without a special report, without an inventory of assets, which was then inventory of assets that was published 3-4 months after the bank was taken, when it is a major requirement at the time of taking a bank under administration. Clearly, these are motivated by greed and envy. It cannot be because the bank was in trouble. Everybody knows that Unibank was
greed and envy from whom to whom?
From the very people who executed
who is
this conduct.
perpetrating the greed? And the Bank of Ghana?
Bank of Ghana, Ken Oforiatta, who spent all our monies to undertake this transaction without finding out what is the best cost-effective manner.
He's envious of whom?
Well, only God knows. Only a few days ago, Fiamu Aben had reason to speak. And his verdict is out there that he was targeted. I am not the one saying it. Kofi Aben said it. But I'm simply saying that at the end of the day, why will you take down banks that could be saved? Worst case scenarios have been saved. Only a few months ago, China saved 2 banks. One of them was just a regional bank. A regional bank in China is like a bank operating in just, say, Upper East alone. But because it became a systemic problem worth $90 billion, China didn't close it down. China saved the bank. And 2 banks have already been saved. You know, as we speak, is having one of the most difficult financial crises in their country. But they are not collapsing the banks. They are saving them.
Well, but Ken Oforiatta saved some banks. He has a GATT. The Ghana Amalgamated Trust,
I don't want to talk about it,
which is helping what he calls well-run indigenous banks.
Okay, let me ask you.
So UNB is benefiting from it.
Let me ask you.
Prudential is benefiting from it. Omni Bank is benefiting
I'm happy you're mentioning the banks. Prudential Bank.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw their audited financial accounts?
They
don't have audited financial accounts.
I don't know.
I said they are in breach of filing their audited financial accounts with Bank of Ghana consistently for 2 years.
But how do you know that? You are not
I know it because it's a public record.
You are not the governor of this.
When you publish,
how do you know that?
You are mandated by law to publish it in the newspapers.
And they haven't published it?
They haven't.
You have read all the newspapers?
For 2 years.
You've read all the newspapers?
I am telling you, if you can find a Prudential Bank audited accounts, come and show it to me.
What does 930 say about not publishing your audited accounts?
You recall that a couple of last year.
Act 930, what does it say about
you suffer penalties?
Maybe they've suffered the penalties.
Yeah, but you are in breach of it. What it means is that your corporate governance is not up to scratch. If your corporate governance is up to scratch, it ends up in the numbers. And if your auditors can't validate your numbers and express an independent opinion on your account and find it difficult to stick their neck out to say that what you have put there reflects the true and fair position of your operations, that's one of the best verdicts of a poorly run corporate governance system. And yet you are telling us, it's an example to tell you.
I have to make a disclaimer and say that what you say about the banks on this program is your own opinion.
Of course.
But the opinion of the Honorable Member of Parliament. They are not the opinion of Metro TV on this program.
Exactly.
So that's a disclaimer right there.
Yeah.
But so you think UNB is also benefiting from GATT?
You see, the issue is
ADB, NIB?
I am saying that NIB. Where is the audited accounts of NIB for the past 3 years?
I don't know.
I'm not telling you that these cannot be well-run banks because they are in breach of filing their audited accounts for 3 consecutive years.
So you're joining the chorus of bias in this whole banking sector. And you disagree with Gabby.
Beyond that, we have stated that NIB on the restructuring of its own balance sheet will be enough to run without even any support financially.
NIB?
Yes. And I
can
tell you,
referring to that,
I can tell you
famous case of another the foreign company where they have some investment?
No. There are 3 things on the balance sheet of NIB that can save NIB. One is that as a result of government non-paying contractors, NIB has been forced to write off 760 million Ghana cedis against its capital.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So if government were to pay these contractors,
you mean Setekpe's portfolio?
No. I am saying, it's not about Setekpe. What I'm saying is that
that's also the problem that Gabby pointed out.
Yes, but when Setekpe spent the money to build the schools, why didn't they throw the schools away? When he spent the money to build the hospitals, and they're not using the hospitals, so you cannot take the asset and leave the liabilities. That is why government is a continuum. And so anybody who made that join this argument is simply saying that government must make sure that by the time you leave, you have completed everything before you leave. It doesn't work like that. And that is why you would pay for the cost of the rich hospital. Okay? You can't decide that you like the rich hospital, but you won't pay the cost of building it. And so when a
Why didn't Setekpe pay the cost of building it?
I am saying that because we left office. Okay, as you run a
But
project,
why he didn't pay rich hospital? He didn't pay contractors.
No, I'm not saying he didn't pay. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay, but why didn't he pay contractors? Why does NIB have to write up such a huge
I
amount?
am saying that NIB, because for the past 2.5 years, government has not paid the contractors.
Well, government hasn't. So Gabby told me something else. I can show it to you.
Yeah.
He said there was an evaluation of the contractor debt at the Ministry of Finance. It was standing at 11 billion when Ken Ofori-Atta inherited the ministry. When they finished, they found that 5 billion of the 11 billion was fraudulent.
You see, that is where I have a challenge with Gabby. I have a challenge discussing financial matters when it comes to Gabby. In the budget, we'll report our arrears and commitments. In the budget. You recall that immediately after MPP took power, there was some chorus that some 7.5 billion or 7-point-something billion could not be traced. You recall?
Yes,
it started with Baumia.
Yes, yes.
The president came and repeated it. 2 weeks later, when Ken Ofori-Atta came to parliament, he said our arrears was 5.7 billion. You see, arrears are not in the pockets of Gabby and Co. Arrears are a matter of institutional arrangement for accruing and accounting for them. And when they are not in the budget, they simply don't exist. And I'm saying that in the budget, the arrears reported by Ken Ofori-Atta when they took over power was 5.7 billion.
So
let Gabby sleep. He should stop talking about 11 billion. You see, I have a challenge with him because...
No, he said 11 billion was inherited upon verification.
No,
it says
no. And I'm saying, so upon verification, where did you throw the money? You will now have to properly capture it. Where was it ever captured again? So you verify
it was exaggerated. That's what verification means. So that when the road cost 100 million, the contractor says it cost 300 million.
So when you now verify and you realize that the figure is 11 billion, you come to parliament to report your next year financials, you don't report it? You don't report an updated accruals and arrears?
You should.
Okay, so if it doesn't exist there, then stop talking. Because
okay, I get your point. That if there's a matter, it should be reported in the budget.
Of course.
Because it's about the fiscal year.
Exactly.
I get it.
And you see,
it's not a matter of conversation.
I have a challenge when we are quoting Gabby because Gabby doesn't take responsibility for the things he says.
Yeah, he's not the minister.
Government doesn't take responsibility.
He's not the minister.
So he should stay out and not force us to engage the wrong person and throw our munitions in the wrong way. Because he doesn't answer for government. And I'm saying that if Ken Ofori-Atta had said that, I would have pointed him to his budget. And I would have asked him to explain why he misled Parliament. But can I say that of Gabby? I cannot.
He doesn't come to Parliament.
And so why is he here wasting our time? When he doesn't take responsibility. At best, he's just an influence peddler. And that is what we know him for. So he should let us have a proper debate. If your uncle is the president and you are having benefits from it, you can stay on and enjoy that. But don't engage us in matters that you don't take responsibility and government doesn't take responsibility for. And I'm saying that these are serious matters that are not reported. And so we can't even be discussing imaginations. I don't know whether you get my point.
I get it.
That is what I want to say.
I get it.
Yes. So the most important thing is that the banking sector crisis today, go and ask the credit unions how much money they have locked up in the banking sector crisis. Close to 860 million. And they are currently, as we speak, undergoing a run-in.
Undergoing what?
There's a run on them. As we
catch
speak
them.
today. People are on them to take their monies.
Oh, yes. And that money is locked up in the
They have money locked up, yes.
You are referring to the Unicredit
savings and loans, 23 savings and loans that were taking alone, about 1.9 billion of fund management companies are locked there.
That's a lot of money.
As we speak today, the University of Ghana.
Why should we take your figures seriously? You are not the Minister of Finance. You're not a member of Parliament.
Yes.
Where did you get these figures from?
You want me to tell you?
Yes.
The minister knows.
Well, where did you, the honorable member of Parliament, get the figures
I am saying that if somebody disagrees with my figures, they should put out the figures. I am saying that as we speak today, I know of one financial services sector entity regulated by SEC, where if you take University of Ghana, University of Cape Coast, the various departments, okay, you take Forestry Commission, you take the Atomic Energy Commission, you take some of these state agencies, their provident funds and superannuations are locked up close to 650 million Ghana cedis. One. So, as schools have reopened, lecturers are struggling to access their provident fund on an OU basis to fund their children's education. That is how serious it is. And we are here having people who just want to have their uncle stay in power and not think about the people come and create all these problems for us. And I'm mentioning just one entity. As we speak today, he says deposit funds are protected. CBG, after the banks collapsed, they called institutional depositors that have funds there and forced them to renegotiate the terms of their deposits. They cut some of them from 25 down to about 15, some of them 10, 12%. After 1 year, they are calling them to give them figures that they want to pay. After 1 year, even the new agreement, that they have also gone back and promised the people who gave them the money and are paying them. Somebody has about 2.5 million sitting there, they call you and say, we can only pay 1.3 million. You take it or leave it. Is that how you protect depositors' money? As we speak today, the savings and loans companies and the microfinance companies that have collapsed, if you have 2 million sitting in any of them, the receiver calls you and says, we can only pay you 10,000 out of your 2 million.
10,000
yes,
out of 2 million.
I'm telling you, out of your 2 million. And when you say, I cannot, I won't accept it, a few minutes later, you get a text message on your phone telling you that an account has been opened at CBG and your 10,000 has been put there. Is that how you protect depositors' funds?
I don't know whether
I am telling you this.
But why should I believe you? This is very,
can you bring Ken Oforiatta?
Ridiculous.
Can you bring Bank of Ghana or Ken Oforiatta to this program?
Wow.
Can you bring him to this program? Let us put the issues before them. Ghanaians are going crazy. People see 10,000 out of 2 million money that they deposited and they go home and they can't sleep. And you are here making a joke out of it. I think we are a very serious group of people. And the Bank of Ghana mess that it has created, there's no reason for anybody to attempt a justification. NIB, today, I was dealing with NIB when we went off.
Yeah.
NIB, you recall we said that, I've mentioned 760 million, that will come back to the bank as pure cash liquidity and also go and reduce its loss on its balance and therefore would increase its capitalization. 2, 500 million, I told you there was this Nestle shares. We asked that they should sell Nestle shares because...
Who is we?
When I say we in the NDC,
okay,
we said they should let NIB board sell the Nestle shares. Because how much do they get as dividends on the Nestle shares? And they need cash. They bought those shares for about 50 million Ghana several years ago. If they sell those shares for about 500 million, okay, they are getting 450 million profit. So first 500 million that they sold will come into the bank and will immediately become what? Liquidity. Add it to the 760 million, you have almost 1.26 billion. Then you have...
What's the point you're making?
The point I am making